In today's video, we're going to talk about everything that you have to do and in what order to have your house sell as fast as possible when you list it. Let's dive right in. It's no secret that a lot of markets have shifted from being an extremely hot buyer's market to cooling down a little bit, or even moving to a seller's market, which effectively means if we're in the position of selling, or if you're an agent that's selling houses, we want to make sure we set ourselves up for success as best as we possibly can. Now, often I think that we have a lot of good ideas that we don't necessarily execute, or things that we tend to forget. I'm probably not speaking for just myself when I say there's been times that I'm like, oh crap, oh yeah, I meant to do that. Or like the day before the listing goes live, we're still scrambling to get things like renovations done. Now, I did an entire other video on our listing strategy with what day we list and how it works that we actually call the Casey to Vault method. We named that after a friend of mine that's a successful realtor here in SoCal. We got it from him, so might as well give credit where it's due. I'll link to it here on YouTube so you can go watch the full thing and understand the strategy behind it. But 10,000 foot view, we're listing on Thursday. We're doing an open house on Saturday, and we're not accepting any offers until Monday. So basically giving the weekend to get people in, get offers looked at, and see what our options are. Now, if you're going to overprice your listing, this is not going to work for you. Quick little rhyme I came up with. You're better off underpricing your house so that it flies than overpricing it where it dies. So now that we've got 10,000 foot view structure out of the way, let's talk about actual order of operations that you need to hit for this to go well. The first thing we have to do is pick which Thursday it is that we're going to list. Ideally, you're doing this a week or even 2 out, so you can make sure all of your ducks are lined up in a row and everything goes off flawlessly. The second thing that we want to do is schedule professional cleaners. We want this place to sparkle. I'm talking dusted window sills, having the floor cleaned with Fabuloso, so the whole place just sparkles and feels like a home that's recently been cleaned, doesn't smell like paint or like a construction job site. The third thing we want to schedule is lawn care or maintenance. If you're in one of those cold states right now, I realize I'm dropping this in January, things like snow removal if it's needed. I've seen a ton of investors, and even on my own listings, I've been guilty of having an exterior that's a little bit overgrown. Guys, we really want to put our best foot forward in our photos. People are going to, in a couple seconds, decide A, if they like our house, B, if they can afford it, and C, if they want to see it. They're making this snap decision in just a few moments based off of how our place looks. Well, if the grass is overgrown, it's going to look kind of overgrown versus if it's perfectly manicured. On your pre-listing lawn care cut, I would go the extra mile. Don't mow it and not use a bag. Mow it, bag it, edge it, have it be flawless so that it photographs great. The fourth step that you've probably guessed is having professional photos taken. Now, it's important that your photos are taken when the place is clean, so you might have to have folks come through once or twice. It's also important to make sure that there's no dumb things in the photographs. I've seen hammers leaning up against walls, or toilet seats that aren't attached, or in the picture of the front room, you can see the realtor's car in the driveway with the trunk open. We want this to look as clean and present as well as possible. It's probably a good idea that you're there when the photographer's there to move things if they need, adjust things if they need. I've seen some lazy photographers that do things they don't turn on the lights or they don't open the blinds. Why would we not do that? I personally always ensure that my photos are taken at golden hour, which is right before sunset. It's when things just tend to look the best. Ideally, you don't want them taken in the middle of the day. You want kind of that sunsetty, warm, light vibe going on. It's also important that your photographer is retouching those images, but we don't want them blown out. I've seen times that they just crank the brightness up so much that it doesn't even look real. It almost looks like I'm looking at a 2D thing versus an actual space. So You want them to be like retouched, but not just blown out. Prior to that listing going live by a day or two, we're also doing just listed postcards. So we're hitting everybody within a top secret distance of that place, letting them know like, hey, new listing is hitting the market. And we're doing that before the listing. So that way, like they get that right as it's live kind of a thing. So you do have to kind of time that. I'd recommend like a day or two before you push live. No postcards can take a day or two or up to like a week, depending on USPS volumes. The day or night before that listing goes live, you're going to want to do a final walkthrough. Like make sure there's no debris, right? Make sure the contractor didn't come back and drag mud into the house. Put out things like air fresheners to make the place feel and smell good. Make sure the air conditioning is set appropriately. I like to go like a little on the cooler side, but still homey. I don't want it to be 50 degrees in the house, but I don't want it to be 74 either, where like people are sweating when they're in there. It's a good idea to like leave a couple lights on. We typically do like front porch, back porch, something in the kitchen. We don't want it to feel like they're just walking into this dark cave. Ideally, their agent goes in before them and like flicks on all the lights so it feels good, but I'm not counting on anybody to do how I would do it. The seventh thing we want to do is just make that listing go live. Got to make sure it goes out on time. The eighth thing that we're going to do is we're going to announce and push that on social media. Whether you're the investor that flipped the house, the agent that's doing the listing, or even the owner occupant, we want everybody in our sphere of influence to know like, hey, we've got this out there, or hey, we just completed another one. It not only might sell that place, but also builds your credibility, track record, and drives interest to what you're doing. The ninth thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we put the place out on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, other like local classifieds, and we want to make sure that it's syndicated to Zillow. I can't count the number of times that I've had an investor tell me, my property is not selling and it's not for sale online. It's only for sale inside the MLS. Realistically, every house I've bought has been a Zillow search to a, hey, Mr. Agent, will you show me this place? It's not been my agent being like, I got one for you. So you want to make sure that it is out there. It's findable, like Zillow, Realtor.com, all of those kind of typical places that people are going to go shopping. If you're a little bit savvy with social media and you're an agent or you're a business page, you might consider boosting that post locally just to get some extra eyeballs on it. We've had folks inside our mastermind group, CCF, actually sell their places without an agent simply by posting, hey, I've got this property that I'm going to be listing. If you're interested in buying it at a slight discount, reach out to me with a whole bunch of like really good photos and a good description on it. The next thing we've got to do is obviously the open house. Now, the open house itself, in my experience, open houses don't really sell houses, but they can bring in new buyers leads for you or even new sellers. Oftentimes neighbors will come over, they want to check the place out. It's also a really good sign if that open house is just packed, right? That's going to drive up that like demand or interest in the property. In my experience, what sells properties for a premium is pricing them appropriately and making it very desirable. So if I go to look at a house, my wife loves it, and there's 10 other couples there that also love it, chances are that place is going to sell that weekend. It's a good idea that evening after the open house that we go through and have the place broom swept and or mopped. We want to get out kind of all of that foot traffic in case it doesn't sell that first weekend. So she's nice and crispy, ready to go for the next week. Now, assuming we price the property appropriately, it's a good time of year, rates didn't just spike or something. We've done a good job and we have offers coming in that first weekend. So we want to review what those offers are. Now, me personally, when I'm looking at accepting an offer, I'm not just looking at price. I'm looking at a balance of price / most likely to close. In my personal / professional experience, the more somebody's putting down, probably the more serious they are. The more earnest money they're putting down, probably the more serious they are. The shorter their inspection window or the fewer their contingencies are, the more likely that thing is to close. Don't be the sucker that takes an FHA offer where they need all kinds of things done, fixed, and inspected. The person is putting down the absolute bare minimum, and you took that offer because it was a couple grand more, only to have it fall through. I'm not knocking FHA buyers. I mean, shoot, my first couple houses were FHA purchases, and then I've been a VA buyer after that because my wife's military. But if somebody's putting down the bare minimum, they need a whole bunch of credits and stuff in order to be able to qualify for the loan, they're 1 or 2 credit card swipes away from not being able to qualify. Now, if you're in the first-time home buyer, starter home market, kind of just is what it is, right? It's very possible you're going to take an FHA offer, it's going to fall out. You're going to take another FHA offer, and it's going to close. But just be cognizant of highest dollar amount doesn't mean you're ever going to see that. Now, in the event we haven't gotten offers, you, if you're the agent or if you're the owner, your agent should be soliciting and hounding for feedback from those showings on how they went, what they liked, what they didn't like. And you want to be kind of honest with the feedback you're getting. If everybody is saying, hey, this place is overpriced, you might be overpriced. If everybody's saying, hey, we don't like X about the property, you might want to look at, can we remediate that? Sometimes it's something like, well, I don't like it's a 2-bed. Well, I'm not going to add a 3rd bedroom. That's just kind of it is what it is thing. I've got a couple pro tips for you. First, if you're not getting showings, you probably need to reduce your price and or just look at your pictures and description and make sure there's nothing catastrophically wrong. If you're getting showings but haven't gotten offer yet, I would sit tight for about another week or 2. Second pro tip for you is we want to do our absolute best to create desire through the images we're using to market the property, because this is sales and marketing. And same thing with the description. So don't be lazy here. Don't take iPhone selfie pictures. Don't take photos when the grass isn't cut or when the house isn't cleaned. Make sure you're putting your best foot forward. First impressions in real estate, particularly when you're trying to sell somebody on this should be their home, absolutely matters. If your market allows it, having the sign in yard with coming soon, open house, those kinds of riders on it, it's absolutely worth kind of just that little attention to detail. If the home isn't a starter home, very cheap in the market, going for the higher end sign, not just the H stake in the yard. I'm talking the one you got to actually hammer into the ground that's made out of wood and looks nice. In my personal opinion, just makes sense. And I threw this one out earlier, but I'm going to hit it again. It's better to underprice the home and have it fly than overprice it and have the listing die. Thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with me. Hopefully this helps you not miss any of these steps that make selling your house just clunkier. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. Again, my name is Ryan Dossey. It's been my pleasure hanging out with you, and I'll talk to you next time.